I'm worried. I'm worried about the New York Giants in 2023. I'm worried that the New York Giants, instead of getting better this year, will actually get worse. I'm concerned that the team that I called the sleeper of 2022, and they came through and had a season even greater than I would have ever thought, advancing to the divisional round. Nobody saw that coming. Their 2022 was a success, but they can't take that for granted. We can't take that for granted. And honestly, I'm worried. I'm concerned about the Giants entering 2023. And this is why. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more NFL content just like this. The New York Giants, last season, they were a story. A Cinderella story, led by a new coaching staff, a new regime from Brian Daboll and his energy that energized this roster, this fan base, and really catapulted this team to new heights. Collectively, a coaching staff that I believe in as one of the best in the NFL, and if this team is going to avoid a collapse and avoid a relapse in 2023, it's going to be because of the brain and the knowledge of this coaching staff. From Brian Daboll on down, that is the strength of this football team. And that is what's going to keep them relevant if they stay relevant. But this New York Giants team already has signs of things I don't like to see. And it's the disease of me, as Michael Lombardi has coined it. And I thought it was very, very catchy and very, very true. We have already seen the side effects of paying Daniel Jones. We have already seen the side effects of a team seeing just a sliver of success and how that may trickle throughout the roster and in that locker room. Of course, a couple key names were free agents this year for your New York Giants. First and foremost, the quarterback Daniel Jones, who had an up and down start to his career, a really bright rookie season, and after that, mostly not a lot of success, but like I've been saying for years, mostly due to the fact he wasn't supported by anything great, especially when it came to coaching. He was given a great coach, given a better system around him, and all of a sudden Daniel Jones showcased top 15, at times even top 10 capabilities. But at the same time, Daniel Jones, some of his faults were hidden by that system. The other player, Saquon Barkley, former second overall pick, probably my favorite running back in the NFL ever since he's come into the league, and one of the most electric playmakers in the league itself. A leader of this team, the face of the franchise, Saquon Barkley. Both players wanted money. Both players wanted a contract. Daniel Jones got that money because he's at the more important position. He's at the quarterback position. But what comes with this, when you give a Daniel Jones a contract of the magnitude that they did, where, in my opinion, they probably overpaid Daniel Jones. They probably competed by themselves, against themselves, for Daniel Jones. I don't see any other team in the NFL paying Daniel Jones what they paid him. For one good season, not a great season, a successful year, in a new system, but how may he play when he's making more money and the team has less assets, less money to spend on the rest of the roster? And how does he play in year 2 of this system when teams now have tape and film on the player in that system? That's a question. You also have the fact that, let's be honest, Daniel Jones, I think, is a good player. And at one point this offseason, I called him the most underrated quarterback in football. And I think that is pretty debatable because nobody gives him any respect. And I certainly want to give him his respect. But just like a guy like Kirk Cousins, both players are better than the public perceives them. Both players, I think, are good players. But neither player, and I think this is fair, is an elite player. And that's the problem. The players around Daniel Jones realized that he's good, and he aided them to success. But he wasn't the sole reason they were successful. In my opinion, the greatest reason was the coaching, the new regime, because the roster wasn't that much more talented. If not, it was less talented than the year previous. Now you hear guys like Dexter Lawrence. Think about that. Think about the money that they may be able to get. Saquon Barkley, instead of playing on the franchise tag, he wants his contract now. Because it's the disease of me. Once you get a little success, and you see that you paid this one guy that, hey, he's not more talented than Dexter Lawrence. He's not more talented than Saquon Barkley. There's no way that you should be paying this guy who, yeah, we like Daniel, but he's not great. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Why is he getting all this money? So this makes its way into the locker room, and it becomes a big deal, and it impacts the product on the field. Instead of your culture being this inspirational thing that uplifts the team to success, now that you've got a little success, that starts to chip its way at that culture and chip its way at the success. And the players are more selfish, and they're more willing to say, well, I was a big part of that success. Why am I not being treated the same as that player? It's the disease of me. And this is the first thing that concerns me about the New York Giants. The Giants are starting to be selfish in the locker room from a contract standpoint. And I'm not blaming the players, because especially a guy like Saquon Barkley at running back, you got to get your money when you can get your money. I'm not blaming him. I'm not hating on the player. I'm hating the game. And the New York Giants, let's be fair, were a playoff team, a team that got the perfect matchup in the first round in order to advance, the Minnesota Vikings. In my opinion, a very talented offense, a team that somehow won one score game after one score game after one score game, but had the worst defense arguably in the entire league. And I feel like that performance from Daniel Jones in that first round against arguably the worst defense in the league catapulted him to getting this contract. I'm not blaming the Giants for paying Daniel Jones, but I'm blaming them for maybe not understanding what comes and what follows that contract that you give Daniel Jones. On top of that, the New York Giants, when we enter 2023, this is a new year, a new season, a fresh slate. They still remain in the NFC East, a division that is very good, very strong. It's easily the best division in this conference, the NFC, which is overall a weak conference. Don't get me wrong. But when we look at the NFC East, I'm very high on Dallas this year, as they've added Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore to an already stacked roster. And if Dak Prescott is healthy the entire year, this is a team that's winning 11 to 14 games quite easily, in my opinion. The Philadelphia Eagles just went to the Super Bowl, and even if they lost some pieces and some coordinators, I still believe Jalen Hurts, that offense, the offensive line, A.J. Brown, etc., good enough to win 10 plus and get to the playoffs. So if you're sending two teams already from the East, how are the New York Giants going to make it? I understand they made it last year as the 3, but Washington is arguably even better. I know they're going through an ownership change, but they probably have a higher floor at quarterback this year, at the very least with Jacoby Brissett. They still got the draft to improve, and overall the roster is just as talented as the Giants roster from my point of view, judging every roster in football. All 32, I feel like both rosters are fairly similar. I'd give the edge to the Giants based on their coaching. But another edge that they had was their camaraderie, their culture. And that has seemingly at least been impacted from my perspective, the way that these leaks are coming out about contracts and players wanting money. That was such a big deal. The energy surrounding the Giants was a huge factor in their success last year. And that may have faded away. There's a lot of different teams in this NFC that is wide open that could potentially compete for a playoff spot with the New York Giants in the wild card. And then you get to the schedule, where the New York Giants schedule last year, let's be fair, was very weak, very easily taken advantage of. And when you look at that schedule and you compare it to this year's is a lot more difficult. The Giants play, at the very least, 2 more elite teams entering 2023 than they did last year. Last year, they only faced the Cowboys and the Eagles in their own division that were considered elite teams by the end of the year. They played other playoff teams like Minnesota, right? And Seattle, who they lost to, by the way. Teams like Buffalo and the Niners are almost guaranteed to be elite teams this year, and they're going to play them as well. And then that doesn't even consider the other teams that they have to play. They play the entire AFC East division. I mean, that is probably the best division in football this year. Last year, they played what? The AFC South, which was the worst division in the AFC? The tougher conference? So they go from the easiest division in the AFC to playing the toughest division in the AFC. And then you look at the luck that they had last year. And I'm not trying to tear apart the Giants. Like I've said, I like the Giants. I like cheering them on. I was a big fan of them last year. You guys really supported me last year, you Giants fans. I love it, man. But I got to be fair with you, and I got to be reasonable. And this is my perspective from a outside perspective. I'm not a Giants fan through and through. I'm a Patriots fan, but I cover all 32 teams, and I try to give you my perspective and my outlook. And really, you look at the luck that the Giants had last year, okay, in some key categories that are indicative to regression the year following. You look at fumble luck, where they were second in forced fumbles from a defensive standpoint. You look at turnover percentage, where they were second best in turnovers last year offensively, and actually best in the league in turnover percentage. I know that stuff can carry over sometimes, but it's a lot of the times down to luck. Like some tip passes, some fluky fumbles, strip sacks, things of that nature that don't always follow through from year to year, season to season. And then lastly, they were 9-4-1 in one-score games. I do not believe they won a single game last year, including the playoffs where they blew a team out. They were decisively better than the other team. That team last year, the Giants, did not decisively blow out anybody. Unless you believe the Giants are drastically more talented, drastically better entering 2023, it's hard for me to look at reasonably what they did in 2022, the constant rumblings of contract negotiations, how that's affecting the locker room, and believe that they're going to be the same team, if not a better team, and improve this year, which I think is the expectation of a lot of the fan base, because they see 1 year they got a lot better, they made the playoffs, they won a playoff game. Now everybody's expecting the Giants to get to that NFC championship or to take the next step. And that's just not always the case. Especially in this league, the NFL, that's a season-to-season league. Things don't last long. It's the not-for-long league. And when you look at the team, look at the roster, before the draft, this team isn't that much better. If not, you could argue in some areas they are worse. I would argue that offensively, they have more skill talent. They added Paris Campbell, who's got some upside at wide receiver, but he's inconsistent and injury prone, but a very electric player. They brought back Isaiah Hodgins. Wan'Dale Robinson is there. And Darren Waller, of course, who has a lot of upside, has a lot of ability. He is a freak, but he also gets hurt a ton. And then can Saquon stay healthy? Can Daniel Jones replicate what he did? The offensive line has some spotty issues in the interior that maybe they fix in the draft. But Evan Neal wasn't great last year. Can he take a step forward? That would be a big area where they could improve with Evan Neal. Defensively, I love the addition at linebacker. You get a very good top 20 linebacker in this league, arguably top 15. That fixes a major hole, but you lose Julian Love. You replace him with Bobby McCain, who's an older version, not as good, not as promising moving forward. You still haven't fixed the corner position. Your pass rush is decent, but I wouldn't say it's great. Maybe you're expecting an upgrade out of Thibodeau. I don't know, but the Giants, yeah, I think on paper you would say collectively they've probably improved. But is it enough to offset all the wins by one score that a lot of times don't replicate from season to season? Is it good enough to replicate the fumble luck? Is it good enough to overcome the issues in the locker room with contracts? Is it good enough? To me, I'm just worried. I don't know. I'm not sure. Right now, I think I project the Giants as around what they were last year. Right on that borderline of the playoffs. 8, 9, maybe 10 wins. At worst, 7 wins. Can Daniel Jones continue to improve? Will he stay the same? How will defenses defend them this year? A lot of questions for me. But ultimately, I think the Giants are one of those teams that I wouldn't be shocked if they improved or if they declined in 2023. So I wanted to give you my thoughts, my feelings, and my worries for the G-Men entering 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL content just like this. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.